Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. The most terrifying monsters are the ones who smile politely while quietly rewriting the rules of the game. It sounds dramatic, but here's a fact. According to multiple psychology studies, people who consistently operate outside traditional social hierarchies are more likely to struggle with hidden loneliness, trust issues, and even what researchers call identity fatigue. Now translate that into the life of a Sigma female, a woman who refuses to kneel to society's gods, who thrives outside the pack, and who can make independence look like an art form. But here's the catch. Behind that untouchable aura is a labyrinth of shadows no one talks about. Her strength doubles as her curse, her silence hides storms, and her freedom can feel like exile. If you've ever wondered what happens when a woman decides she'd rather rewrite the script than play the part, you're about to find out. And let's be honest, being a Sigma female sounds empowering until you realize it also means explaining to your grandmother for the 100th time why you're not interested in joining the family WhatsApp gossip group. Welcome to the dark side of being a Sigma female. Number 1. Emotional withdrawal as self-defense. When most people get angry or hurt, they fight, cry, argue, or at least show some visible reaction. A Sigma female doesn't always do that. Her way of dealing with emotional pain is far quieter, but far more unsettling. She withdraws completely. She doesn't slam doors, raise her voice, or make a scene. She simply detaches, almost as if her soul has stepped out of the room while her body stays behind. To outsiders, this can feel like punishment without explanation. Someone who thought they were close to her may suddenly feel like a stranger. She doesn't provide long speeches or detailed justifications for why she's hurt. She just shuts off the emotional connection, leaving the other person lost in confusion, replaying every detail of what went wrong. That absence of closure is brutal, and it's exactly why her withdrawal cuts deeper than any outburst ever could. What most people don't realize is that this isn't just coldness, it's her armor. For a Sigma female, showing emotional vulnerability often feels dangerous. She knows emotions can be used as weapons, twisted or thrown back at her. So instead of giving anyone that power, she pulls back into herself where no one can reach. It's not always about revenge. Sometimes it's pure self-preservation. But the effect on others is still hauntingly powerful. The real darkness of this trait is how easily it becomes a cycle. The more she practices emotional withdrawal, the easier it gets, and the less tolerant she becomes of emotional messiness in others. Over time, she can appear untouchable, even robotic, when in reality she's just hiding battle scars no one ever sees. People who care about her often mistake her silence for indifference, not realizing it's actually her way of surviving pain she doesn't fully know how to process. This is why relationships with a Sigma female can feel both intoxicating and terrifying. On one hand, her self-control makes her seem strong and mysterious. On the other, her sudden disappearance, emotionally or even physically, can leave someone feeling like they've been erased. The scariest part isn't her anger. It's the void she leaves behind when she decides to vanish from your heart without a trace. Number 2. Her cold rationality can dehumanize. A Sigma female's rational mind is a fortress, and when she detaches emotionally, it becomes a weapon. She doesn't react impulsively or emotionally. She analyzes, calculates, and evaluates everything around her with a precision that can feel almost clinical. In this state, people stop being individuals with feelings and stories. They become variables, patterns, and risks to be managed. Decisions are made with logic and efficiency, not sentiment, and this detachment allows her to navigate complex situations without the distractions of empathy or moral hesitation. This cold rationality is a shield, protecting her from manipulation, betrayal, or disappointment. But it can also dehumanize the world around her, including the people she cares about. She sees weaknesses, inconsistencies, and potential threats where others see humanity, and she responds accordingly. Relationships, conflicts, and opportunities are approached like strategic moves in a game of chess, rather than genuine interactions between people. Her detachment allows her to act with clarity and effectiveness, but it can leave others feeling stripped of significance, like their emotions, intentions, and presence are irrelevant to her calculations. The danger of this mindset is subtle but profound. While she may appear composed, fair, or even impartial, her ability to detach so completely can make her seem cold, distant, or unfeeling. People who once expected warmth and connection may find themselves bewildered or hurt when her decisions prioritize strategy over sentiment. In her pursuit of clarity and control, she risks eroding empathy, not just in others, but in herself, treating human interactions as systems to be optimized rather than experiences to be shared. This quality makes her formidable but also isolating. She can solve problems, navigate conflicts, and achieve goals with unmatched precision, yet those closest to her may feel invisible or secondary to her logic. Her rational mind protects her from the chaos of the world, but in doing so, it can strip away the very human connections that make life rich and meaningful. In the end, her brilliance is inseparable from the coldness it can impose, a dual-edged trait that commands respect but exacts a hidden emotional cost. Number 3. Intimacy as a battlefield. For a Sigma female, intimacy is never casual. Opening up to someone is not a light-hearted act of trust. It is a calculated risk, a test, and often a battlefield. She guards her emotions fiercely because she understands how vulnerable they make her. Every word, every gesture, every confession is weighed against the potential for betrayal, disappointment, or misunderstanding. She doesn't hand her heart freely. She evaluates, measures, and challenges those who try to enter her inner world. When she does allow someone close, it often feels like war. She withholds affection, tests loyalty, and pushes boundaries to see if the other person can endure her intensity. Small mistakes aren't brushed aside. They are signals, clues to character, resilience, and compatibility. She observes reactions, notices subtleties, and interprets them as part of a larger evaluation of whether the person is truly capable of understanding and respecting her. This process is exhausting for those unprepared for it, but for her it is necessary self-protection. Her defenses are not arbitrary, they are precise and unyielding. She wants to know that anyone who claims closeness can handle her complexity, intensity, and independence without being broken, intimidated, or manipulated. Emotional vulnerability is a weapon, and she wields it with caution. Only when she feels someone has proven themselves worthy does she allow glimpses of genuine openness, and even then, it is measured and controlled. The battlefield of intimacy comes with consequences. Many people interpret her tests as coldness, indifference, or cruelty. They fail to see that her seemingly harsh scrutiny is born from a deep awareness of the stakes of closeness. For her, relationships are high-risk, high-reward arenas, and only those who can survive the trials of her defenses experience the depth of connection she is capable of offering. In the end, intimacy with a Sigma female is not a casual exchange. It is a proving ground, a crucible that separates fleeting attachments from the rare bonds that truly endure. Number 4. Attraction to chaos. A Sigma female often projects calm, control, and composure, but beneath that surface lies a fascination with chaos. She is quietly drawn to instability, conflict, and people whose lives are fractured or turbulent. This attraction isn't about thrill-seeking or recklessness, it's deeper, almost unconscious. She sees in these situations and individuals reflections of the parts of herself she keeps hidden, the anger, the pain, the unresolved shadows that she has trained herself to contain. In others' chaos, she recognizes the pieces of her own darkness she cannot or will not face directly. This pull toward instability gives her a paradoxical sense of understanding and control. When she engages with someone or something in disarray, she feels a strange alignment, as if she can navigate their storms better than most. Her calm presence becomes both a stabilizing force and a mirror for their turmoil. Yet this fascination carries risk. By surrounding herself with damaged people or unpredictable environments, she exposes herself to patterns of pain she has carefully avoided in her own life. It's a subtle temptation. She believes she can handle the chaos, but the repeated exposure chips away at her emotional equilibrium over time. Her attraction to chaos also reveals the depth of her inner complexity. She is not content with superficial peace or predictable situations. She instinctively gravitates toward depth, intensity, and the hidden edges of life, even if they threaten her own stability. Her curiosity and empathy make her a magnet for brokenness, while her desire for control compels her to engage with it strategically. The result is a cycle. She seeks chaos. She observes it. She sometimes tries to tame it. And yet the very engagement forces her to confront parts of herself she would rather leave unexamined. This shadowy pull keeps her enigmatic, magnetic, and sometimes dangerous. To outsiders it appears as compassion or curiosity, but beneath the surface it is a reflection of her own unacknowledged darkness. The chaos she is drawn to mirrors the tension between control and surrender, strength and vulnerability, creating a quiet but potent force that shapes her choices, relationships, and inner world in ways few ever see. Number 5. Selective ruthlessness. A Sigma female doesn't waste energy on petty fights or random displays of anger. Her ruthlessness is not loud or chaotic. It's precise, measured, and intentional. When someone crosses her boundaries, whether by disrespect, manipulation, or betrayal, she doesn't react impulsively. She studies the situation, understands every angle, and chooses the moment and method of response that will make the most impact. Her retaliation isn't about drama or instant gratification. It's about ensuring the lesson is unforgettable. This makes her dangerous in ways most people never anticipate. Unlike those who lash out in the heat of emotion, she waits, observes, and executes her response with surgical accuracy. It could be a single word, a calculated withdrawal of support, or exposing the truth in a way that hits precisely where it will hurt the most. The scars she leaves aren't always visible. They are often psychological, subtle, and lingering, haunting the person long after the interaction ends. Her selective ruthlessness comes from a place of self-preservation. She understands the cost of being vulnerable and the consequences of letting people take advantage of her strength, intelligence, or emotional stability. She doesn't act out of cruelty for the sake of it. Her actions are strategic, a form of controlled justice that reminds others that boundaries exist and crossing them has consequences. Those who underestimate her often pay the highest price. People might assume her calm demeanor signals weakness or passivity, but in reality, she is calculating, waiting, and ready. When she finally strikes, it's not chaotic, it's deliberate, impactful, and unforgettable. She teaches lessons once, with such precision that repeating the offense becomes unthinkable. This is the dark beauty of her character. She doesn't need to dominate constantly, she doesn't need to be loud, and she doesn't need validation. Her power is in restraint, observation, and the quiet certainty that when necessary, she can make someone regret underestimating her intelligence, her limits, and her capacity for retribution. Her selective ruthlessness is a warning and a weapon, invisible until it's already too late. Number 6. Eternal outsider syndrome. Even when people try to include her, make her feel welcome, or offer her a place at the table, a Sigma female rarely truly feels at home. There's an internal barrier she cannot or will not cross. Belonging requires compromise, surrendering parts of herself to fit into someone else's expectations, and she instinctively resists that. To her, harmony often feels like a trap, a soft cage that promises comfort but risks eroding the freedom and identity she values above all else. This creates a paradox. She craves connection, intimacy, and understanding, yet she instinctively keeps a distance, even when it's not necessary. Part of her actively sabotages situations where she could integrate fully because existing on the margins is where she feels safest. Being on the edge allows her to observe, control, and retreat at will. It's a space where she can remain entirely herself without risking dilution, compromise, or disappointment. Her outsider status is not always obvious to others. She can charm, engage, and participate with apparent ease, yet there's a subtle emotional wall that she never dismantles. People sense it but cannot pinpoint it, and they often misinterpret it as aloofness, mystery, or even arrogance. In reality, it's self-preservation. Being fully seen or fully included has always carried the threat of loss or confinement, and she has learned to protect herself by staying slightly apart. This perpetual state of partial detachment comes with consequences. It isolates her, even when she is surrounded by people who care. It creates a tension between desire and avoidance. She wants connection, but instinctively resists it. Her life on the margins is both empowering and lonely, a place where she feels in control, but never fully comfortable. The world may welcome her in, but her nature ensures she always walks her own path, observing from the edges, participating without surrendering, and preserving the freedom that she prizes above all else. Being an eternal outsider isn't a choice. It's a lens through which she experiences life, a silent rule she lives by, and a constant undercurrent that shapes how she loves, trusts, and moves through the world. Number 7. Her compassion has a clock. A Sigma female can feel more deeply than most people ever realize. Her empathy is intense, her understanding profound, and when she decides to invest her care, it is wholehearted and unwavering. She notices the smallest struggles, remembers the tiniest details, and often goes out of her way to help people in ways no one else would. But there's a hidden mechanism behind this generosity, a clock no one can see ticking. Her patience and compassion are finite, and she is painfully aware of their limits. Every act of giving, every ounce of tolerance comes with an internal counter. She tolerates mistakes, excuses, and immaturity up to a point, but once the invisible timer reaches zero, her emotional investment disappears like it never existed. What was once warmth and understanding instantly becomes distance and indifference, leaving those who relied on her care stunned, confused, and often hurt. This isn't cruelty. It's survival. She has learned that endless patience is a trap, that her kindness can be exploited, and that people often take for granted what is freely given. By having a clock, she protects herself from burnout, manipulation, and disappointment. But the abruptness of her withdrawal makes it feel like punishment. The shift from empathy to detachment is so sudden and absolute that it leaves a lingering emotional impact on anyone who assumed her care was limitless. The clock also forces those around her to value her presence genuinely. If someone takes her compassion for granted, ignores her boundaries, or abuses her trust, they experience her withdrawal as a clear, undeniable consequence. She doesn't negotiate, explain, or plead. She simply turns off the well of care and moves on, leaving the person to grapple with the reality that her attention and empathy are privileges, not rights. Her compassion has a clock, and that clock makes her both rare and intimidating. People either learn to honor her limits, or they face the sudden, unyielding reality of her indifference. In this way, her kindness is powerful, but her detachment is lethal in its precision. Number 8. The temptation of emotional nihilism. A Sigma female has a rare clarity when it comes to the world around her. She sees through pretense, social games, and the countless illusions people cling to in order to feel safe or important. To the untrained eye, this insight looks like wisdom, but beneath it lies a dangerous temptation, the idea that nothing truly matters. The more she observes, the more she notices how fragile, repetitive, and arbitrary much of human behavior is. The lies people tell themselves, the rituals they follow, the endless striving for approval, it all begins to feel meaningless. Flirting with this realization is seductive. She starts questioning the value of effort, the point of compromise, the worth of connection, and even the necessity of emotion itself. It can be a quiet, almost meditative detachment at first, a way to shield herself from disappointment and manipulation. But left unchecked, this perspective can tip into emotional nihilism, a place where caring becomes optional, hope feels naive, and detachment is the only safe posture. This isn't just intellectual skepticism, it's emotional and existential. She risks withdrawing not just from social norms, but from meaningful bonds, from intimacy, and even from her own joys. Life can begin to feel like a hollow performance, a series of patterns that she navigates with skill but without engagement. The darkness is subtle at first, the occasional shrug at injustice, the casual dismissal of sentiment, but it deepens if she allows herself to linger too long in that mindset. The danger is that this emotional nihilism can become self-reinforcing. The more she believes that nothing matters, the easier it becomes to disconnect, and the more isolated she becomes as a result. People may call her cold or distant, but it's more than that. It's a defensive stance, a survival mechanism for someone who perceives the fragility and absurdity of the world with unnerving clarity. For a Sigma female, the temptation of emotional nihilism is a constant shadow. It whispers that detachment is freedom, that apathy is safety, and that caring deeply is a risk she cannot afford. The challenge is balancing her piercing insight with the human need for meaning, passion, and connection, or else risk becoming a master of the world's illusions while losing herself entirely to their emptiness. Number 9. The cost of being unreadable. Her unreadable nature is both her greatest weapon and her heaviest burden. To the world, a Sigma female exudes mystique, an aura of calm, confidence, and independence that draws people in. They are fascinated by her, intrigued by her silence, and often desperate to understand her. This enigma gives her immense power. People bend over backward to gain her trust, to earn her attention, or to decipher the hidden layers of her personality. Her secrets and contradictions make her magnetic. But every advantage has a cost. The very qualities that make her irresistible also create a wall between her and true intimacy. Few people ever penetrate it, and those who do often discover that they can only grasp fragments, never the whole. Her thoughts, feelings, and motivations are deeply internalized, carefully controlled, and rarely shared. Even with people who love her most, she remains partially concealed, a puzzle that resists completion. This unreadability carries an invisible weight. Relationships that could have been profound are often stunted because the other person cannot fully connect with her. She may care deeply, but her emotional armor makes her seem distant or aloof. People misinterpret her silence as indifference, her independence as detachment, and her boundaries as rejection. The irony is cruel. In guarding herself, she sometimes drives away the very people she might have cherished. Over time, this pattern can leave her isolated in subtle ways. She experiences a form of loneliness that isn't obvious to outsiders because she is never completely alone. She interacts, socializes, and maintains appearances. But internally, there is a constant awareness that no one can fully know her. Even those closest to her may leave with lingering questions and incomplete understanding. The cost of being unreadable is the risk of dying misunderstood. Her power, her mystique, and her control over how others perceive her come at the price of complete intimacy. She gains respect, intrigue, and autonomy, but she may never fully experience the comfort of being wholly seen, wholly known, and wholly loved. In the end, her unreadability is a paradox. It protects her, but it also isolates her from the very human connection she occasionally craves. Number 10. Invisible power hunger. A Sigma female rarely announces her ambitions, and she doesn't compete for power the way an alpha does. She doesn't need a title, a corner office, or a spotlight to feel significant. Yet beneath her calm, independent exterior lies a quiet, almost imperceptible hunger for influence. She observes, calculates, and positions herself in ways that let her shape outcomes without ever appearing to try. Her power is subtle, indirect, and often underestimated, which makes it far more dangerous than overt dominance. Unlike those who demand authority, she moves through social dynamics like a shadow. She knows who holds the real leverage, which arguments will shift decisions, and which relationships carry hidden potential. Her interventions are rarely obvious. A passing suggestion, a well-timed observation, or a carefully worded question can redirect the course of events without anyone realizing she had a hand in it. This indirect approach allows her to maintain her independence, while simultaneously steering situations in her favor, often leaving others unaware of the influence she wields. Her power hunger is not rooted in ego, it is strategic. She doesn't need recognition because the results speak for themselves. People might think she is uninvolved or disengaged, but she is quietly pulling levers, nudging narratives, and shaping decisions from behind the scenes. The subtlety of her control is what makes it so effective and so dangerous. Unlike an alpha whose dominance is visible and can be resisted, a Sigma female's influence is nearly invisible until it's too late to counter. This silent command allows her to operate with freedom and immunity. She avoids the politics, the conflicts, and the scrutiny that come with overt power, yet she still reaps the benefits. She achieves outcomes, guides people, and enforces boundaries without ever appearing to assert authority. In many ways, her power is a paradox, hidden, indirect, and underestimated, yet immensely effective. The Sigma female doesn't seek to conquer, she seeks to shape the world on her own terms, and in doing so, her control becomes almost untouchable. Number 11. Loneliness by design. Loneliness for a Sigma female is rarely accidental. It isn't a circumstance that happens to her. It's a pattern she creates, often without even realizing it. Her need for independence, control, and self-preservation drives her to keep people at a distance. She chooses solitude over compromise, observation over participation, and boundaries over conformity. Over time, these choices form a life that is intentionally, almost architecturally, isolated. She surrounds herself with enough connection to feel engaged, yet not enough to feel vulnerable. In doing so, she ensures that she remains an outsider, always slightly removed from the groups, relationships, and communities that others take for granted. What makes this pattern so complex is the emotional paradox it produces. She designs her life to avoid intrusion, to safeguard her freedom, and to maintain control. Yet she often secretly resents the very isolation she has cultivated. There is a constant tension between her desire for autonomy and her inherent need for connection. She wants people to understand her, to respect her boundaries, and to accept her without intrusion. But deep down, she feels the ache of being on the outside, watching life and relationships unfold while remaining apart. This loneliness is subtle but heavy. It doesn't scream or demand attention, but it shapes her choices, moods, and interactions. Even when she allows herself brief closeness, there is an invisible barrier, a protective mechanism that prevents anyone from fully entering her world. She may crave connection at times, but the habits and instincts that keep her safe also keep her alone. Her life becomes a delicate balance between the freedom she treasures and the isolation it enforces. Every act of self-preservation comes at the cost of intimacy, and every step toward others risks eroding the boundaries she values. Loneliness by design is her safeguard, her strategy, and her silent torment. It allows her to remain in control, but it also ensures that a part of her will always be watching from the margins, yearning for connection she is simultaneously unwilling to fully embrace. Number 12. Resentment of mediocrity. A Sigma female carries an almost uncompromising standard for herself and others, and mediocrity is something she cannot tolerate. She sees it everywhere, in laziness, in half-hearted efforts, in people who accept the ordinary as sufficient. It isn't just a passing annoyance, it grates at her on a deep, almost physical level. She instinctively measures everyone against her own drive, intelligence, and ambition. And when others fall short, she doesn't just feel frustration, she feels disappointment. This isn't the loud, dramatic kind of frustration most people expect. It's quiet, pervasive, and relentless, seeping into how she views relationships, collaborations, and even casual interactions. Her disdain for mediocrity creates distance. She struggles to connect with most people because she instinctively filters them through this harsh lens. Conversations that others find mundane or trivial can feel excruciating to her. She notices laziness in effort, weakness in resolve, and shallow thinking in ways that make it almost impossible to feel genuine respect. This doesn't make her cruel or judgmental in the overt sense, but it does make her selective to the extreme. Only those who match her intensity, curiosity, or insight can breach her attention and gain even a fragment of her respect. The cost of this selective standard is isolation. She lives in a world of quiet disappointment, aware of how few people meet her expectations, yet unable or unwilling to lower her standards for the sake of connection. She admires brilliance when she sees it, but brilliance is rare, and most of the time, she finds herself observing mediocrity and silently recoiling. This constant evaluation shapes her relationships, her ambitions, and even how she interacts with the broader world. Her resentment of mediocrity is both a strength and a curse. It fuels her drive to excel, to push boundaries, and to create a life of depth and meaning, but it also leaves her in a perpetual state of solitude. She is surrounded by people, yet often alone in thought and spirit, navigating a world that fails to meet the intensity she naturally demands of herself and everyone around her. The Sigma female is a study in contrasts, a woman of immense strength who simultaneously carries shadows few ever see. She moves through the world with independence, intelligence, and an unshakable sense of self. Yet beneath her composed exterior lies a labyrinth of complexity, contradiction, and quiet intensity. Every trait that makes her magnetic, her independence, her rationality, her depth, also carries a hidden cost. Emotional withdrawal that can wound without a word, selective ruthlessness that leaves invisible scars, and a brilliance so intense that it isolates her from those who cannot keep up. Her life is a delicate balance between power and vulnerability. She navigates chaos, attraction, and human imperfection with precision, yet she is constantly aware of her own shadows, her temptation toward nihilism, her appetite for influence, and the self-sabotaging patterns that threaten the very fulfillment she seeks. Relationships, intimacy, and connection become a battlefield where only those strong enough to endure her tests can ever reach the rare depth of her trust. Her empathy has limits, her compassion a clock, and her patience is measured, yet when she finally gives, it is with a force few can comprehend. And yet, it is precisely this tension, the coexistence of light and shadow, of independence and longing, of power and isolation, that defines her extraordinary nature. She is both liberator and executioner, observer and participant, protector and disruptor. To know a Sigma female is to witness a life lived on the edge of brilliance and darkness, where every choice carries weight, and every connection is a gamble. Her story reminds us that greatness is rarely simple. It is layered, demanding, and often lonely, but it is also breathtakingly compelling. The Sigma female does not fit neatly into the world's expectations, nor does she want to. She lives unapologetically, fiercely, and intensely. And in doing so, she challenges everyone around her to see, understand, and respect the raw power of a woman who walks her own path, even when that path winds through shadow. The dark side of a Sigma female is not a flaw. It is a testament to her complexity, a mirror of her strength, and a warning to anyone who underestimates the quiet storms she carries within. If you've been captivated by the hidden depths and untold truths of the Sigma female, don't let this be the last time you explore a world so intense and fascinating. Hit that subscribe button now to join us, because there's so much more to uncover, more insights, more revelations, and more truths no one else dares to explore. If this video resonated with you, give it a like to show your support and let us know we're bringing value straight to you. Comment below with your thoughts, experiences, or any Sigma female insights you've noticed. Your voice matters, and we want to hear it. And don't keep this to yourself. Share it with friends, family, or anyone who thrives on understanding power, independence, and the raw, untold realities of extraordinary women. By subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing, you're not just supporting the channel, you're joining a community that refuses to settle for surface-level truths and dares to see the world as it really is. So go ahead, hit subscribe, tap that bell, and step into a world where knowledge meets power, and the extraordinary is explored in ways you've never seen before. Your journey into the shadows, the strengths, and the secrets of Sigma females starts here.